Welcome to episode number 66 of Future Talk Fanatics. I am here with Purdue men's basketball reporter Sam King to recap their big win against Wisconsin yesterday and what his thoughts are on the upcoming couple of games they have on the schedule. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What were your initial thoughts on how the Purdue game went?
Well, first of all, it was I think it was quite impressive the fact that Purdue won. First of all, beat the number 6 team at its home gym. That's a tough place to win for anybody. So that's a big win in terms of the Big Ten Conference, in terms of just trying to get that number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But also the way that Purdue won was, Zach Edey didn't go off for 25 or 30 points. He had 18. 2 of those were a fast break dunk in the final seconds. So really, he had 16 points in the course of the game and didn't shoot very well for the second game in a row. Wasn't very sharp from the free throw line, which maybe is a concern, but Purdue's won the last 2 games. So hopefully you can shore that up while still winning games. But Purdue didn't come out and hit 8 or 10 threes, which has kind of been a winning formula for it this year. It was Lance Jones was the only one who hit a 3-pointer. It was a lot more of just hitting elbow jumpers and really stopping Wisconsin from getting to the bucket, and then also defending the 3-pointer a lot better than it did against Northwestern, at least percentage-wise. Wisconsin still had some open looks. They just didn't fall. But I thought that Purdue made a concerted effort to defend better, not let Wisconsin or Northwestern, for that matter, the game before, get to the basket, which has been something that's been a problem against pretty good guards in the past, is stopping them from getting to the lane and then kind of creating for other people. So defensively, I thought it was a step in the right direction. Offensively, maybe a step back, but Purdue proved it can win in different ways and have other guys step up and lead you in scoring.
My next question is, what were your thoughts on Purdue's defense down the stretch in the second half?
Yeah, I know, first of all, Purdue gave some easy buckets away with turnovers, which, kind of got concerning there late. Braden Smith maybe gets bailed out on getting pinned in the corner and they call a foul instead of a turnover. But I thought overall Purdue defended pretty well to hold that team to 69 points at home. You can't ask for much more than that. And especially with as efficient as Purdue's offense has been, you have to feel like if we can hold a team under 70, Purdue should come away with a win there. And that was, what was the case. Braden Smith got 2 huge steals when that game got really tight. And I thought that was the turning point. One of those, he slapped the ball away and then forced Tyler Wall to throw it to Lance Jones. Lance Jones drives down the court and gets an easy layup. And then Wisconsin comes right back down, trying to maybe turn that momentum back in its favor. And Braden Smith gets another swipe and takes the ball away. So I thought that was a huge sequence where the defense really stepped up in a key moment there in the final couple minutes.
Mm-hmm. What went through your mind at the time when the Badgers shrunk the lead of Purdue to 59-57 with 4 minutes left in the game?
Yeah, it seems like maybe I jinxed Purdue because a while back, I think it was after Purdue hosted Iowa and just buried that team and didn't let the Hawkeyes back in that game. I said, this is different than last year where Purdue would get these big leads and then would last year kind of seemingly let those teams come back at the end. And then since then, we've seen Illinois come back and almost, steal a win late at Mackey Arena. We saw Northwestern was down, came back and actually took a 6-point lead late in that game and before Purdue had to come back. And now we've seen, Rutgers obviously last week. And then this Wisconsin game, we've seen Purdue not be able to slam the door shut on these teams like it had earlier in the year. But that said, I think that kind of shows the maturity of this team where these games are getting tight and tense and Purdue's got a target on its back every single night. And you're going to get close games against any Big Ten team probably at this point. And for Purdue to not, I guess, kind of crashed there when things got tough. Instead, made a couple of key shots. Lance Jones hit a huge three, I think, right after that moment you just mentioned, to get that separation back. These are moments that big players step up, and fortunately for Purdue, I think you've got at least four guys, maybe five if you throw Mason Gillis in there, who want the ball in those big moments to hit a big shot.
What were your thoughts on how Edie, Loyal, and Jones performed?
I thought Fletcher Lawyer was fantastic because what a lot of teams think of him as is probably primarily a three-point shooter who will stand out there and kind of just take open shots because of the players around him. And yesterday he was chased off the three-point line, but was able to hit the runners and get in there and shoot layups or draw fouls. And when he gets to the free throw line, he's almost automatic. So you can pretty much chalk up 2 points when Fletcher Lawyer goes to the free throw line. That's a huge element that a lot of teams, dating back to when Purdue played Arizona, I know Arizona's coach said we were willing to live with Fletcher Lawyer shooting floaters in the lane. Well, it turns out that he's pretty good at that shot. He's kind of mastered it, and he's smart enough basketball wise that he can kind of pick up what you're taking away from him and take advantage of what you're giving him. I thought another big moment, which maybe nobody saw until it came out on social media, Purdue's Instagram account had put out a video where late there was a lob from Lawyer to Edie for a dunk, but it was Matt Painter had drawn up a play and a timeout, and Lawyer said, no, like his defender is guarding him closer than mine. Mine is sagging off a little bit. And Painter said, do you think you can make the pass? And Lawyer tells him, yeah. So they flipped the play for Lawyer to throw the lob to Edie. And that's just, great coaching, listening to your players. But the reason that I think Fletcher Lawyer has played a lot, and I know there's been games where people have kind of crapped on him for getting the minutes he does, is because his basketball IQ is so high that, he's great in these situations just from an understanding of the game standpoints, where maybe he's not as athletic as somebody else on the team, Miles Colvin or Camden Heide or whoever it might be, but he's smart, gonna make winning plays in the stretch, and we saw it numerous times throughout the last two seasons. Zach Edey did not play his best, to be honest. I think he would truthfully tell you that, and maybe that's why it's a great sign that Purdue was able to win despite that happening. Missed a lot of free throws, missed a lot of shots that he normally makes. And, it's hard to sit here and say the guy didn't play well, and he had 18 points and 13 rebounds. So that's where he is right now. Is like, you almost expect him to get 25 points and 15 boards every single night, which is absolutely ridiculous to think of a guy that, he should just go out and give you that every single night. But that's how good he's been, is that, you start to say he had a down night if he doesn't get 20. And it's kind of just crazy to think that there's a player on Purdue's team that is the best player in the country that's at that state where it's like you've got to have that every single night, and then when you don't, you still find a way to win. And that goes to kind of your last point, which was Lance Jones, and I think he's just stepped up incredibly well. He's fit in with this team as a fifth-year graduate transfer, better than anybody could have imagined. There were a lot of people who, when they found out Purdue's getting a guard from Southern Illinois who was just kind of a high-volume shooter there, fans weren't too thrilled with that. That's the guy that's coming here. We kind of saw that last year with David Jenkins, and it worked out at times, but it wasn't consistent. And Lance Jones has been great from a personality standpoint. He's the right fit. From a defensive standpoint, he's alleviated a lot from Braden Smith. Ball handling also helped Braden Smith tremendously in that aspect, where you have another guy that can bring the ball up the court that you're not worried about getting a turnover. We saw his dribbling skills yesterday when they tried to trap him, and he dribbled right out of it. But then it's just his shot making. I talked to him after the game about, have you always been the guy that when the game's on the line, you have the ball in your hands? And that's been his whole life. So now he's in a situation where with the game on the line, it's going to be in Braden Smith's hand. It's going to be in Fletcher Lawyer's hand. They're going to dump the ball down to Zach Edey. But also you have Lance Jones, who has a history of making big shots in the clutch. And we've seen it at the end of a couple of halves this year where he knocks down a three at the buzzer and does it pretty calmly. Yesterday, I thought he was very calm when things got tense, either going to the basket and scoring or hitting a couple of huge shots. And, I think that if Purdue makes a Final Four run, it will be because of Zach Edey, Braden Smith, and all the other guys that were on the team last year. But I think the X factor is because Lance Jones is on this team.
So this is kind of a fun question for you. If you were in Matt Painter's shoes, what will be your keys to win the game for this Saturday's matchup against Indiana?
I think you have to take advantage of being at home. Last time Purdue played Indiana, it was a mismatch, and a lot of people looked at the spread, and Purdue was favored by 10 points and thought that was wild. And then Purdue wins by 21. But you have to go out there and put that team away early. I think that Indiana struggled this year shooting threes, but has found a little bit of help in that regard with obviously finding a player that hadn't played a whole lot and hit some big threes earlier this week in a win. Trey Galloway, I think, is a dangerous player, but I think Purdue has a mismatch every night with Zach Edey. Now, Indiana has some bigs who are pretty athletic, maybe not as physical as Edey, but can at least body him up and match him athletically. So you need your guard play to be tremendous. And I think, this is a game where maybe you get a Mason Gillis who steps up and becomes a guy that gets 15 to 18 points, or a Trey Kaufman-Renn, because Indiana knows what it can't do, which is exactly what it did last time it played Purdue. So I think you're going to have, not, first of all, the obvious thing is always not turning the ball over. That seems to be when Purdue loses games, which is rare, that seems to be the reason why Purdue loses games. So taking care of the basketball with the guard play, and then maybe getting that guy who hasn't given you a whole bunch of offense consistently, stepping up and having a big game, which would be probably that 4 position between either Kaufman or Gillis, because I think Braden Smith's going to give you what he typically gives you. Same with Lance Jones, same with Zach Edey, and Fletcher Lawyer usually is in that 8 to 15 point range, and occasionally pops off for 25. So you're gonna what you're gonna get with those 4 guys. It's what do you get from that 5th position. But Matt Painter is far more brilliant at basketball than I am, and there's a reason why he's probably going to end up passing Gene Keady on the career wins list at some point and being Purdue's all-time winningest head coach.
What specific playoff matchup are you most looking forward to seeing on Saturday?
I think it's definitely Khalil Ware, and the guy's been really good for Indiana, an athletic freak, and just how Purdue tries to defend him, because he is a guy that probably is going to make it to the NBA somehow. What can he do to stop him? And what Purdue maybe kind of throws at that, but it always comes down to point guard play, and it doesn't matter who the other team has. I'm always looking at Braden Smith, because he's apparently so underrated because he's not on this Bob Cousy list, but he's one of the best point guards in the country, and the way that he can control a game, whether that's scoring, whether that's passing, rebounding, defending, he does so many different things, and it's just kind of on any particular night, what are you going to see out of him, and how's he going to lead this team? Because yes, Zach Edey's tremendous, and he's going to score a lot of points, get a lot of rebounds and blocks, but Zach Edey is not the player he is if Braden Smith does not run this whole thing and work kind of a 2-man game between himself and Edey in that pick and roll, or that catching the ball about free throw line and letting Edey work. But Edey's got to get the ball, and it all starts with Braden Smith. So it's going to be Braden Smith and versus Indiana's defensive whatever system it tries to throw to stop Braden Smith from taking over a game.
And my last question is, what are your thoughts on the rest of the schedule, and how deep of what is the prediction of how deep Purdue will go in the big tournament and in the conference tournament?
The schedule is very favorable for Purdue, and I know I say that knowing you still have to play Wisconsin, Michigan State, at Illinois, which is going to be very tough towards the end of the year. But the mileage that Purdue has put on, and now where you get to a point where Purdue doesn't play for 6 days, coming off a win Sunday, you play Indiana Saturday night at home. That's probably a huge mental break and just a chance to get rest for guys like Zach Edey and Braden Smith, who have been playing 35 to 40 minutes pretty consistently here over a stretch of games. But in terms of the travel and in terms of the way the schedule breaks down for Purdue at the end of the season, I think especially now with the win at Wisconsin and leading the Big Ten, you're in a great position to come away with a regular season conference title. The Big Ten tournament is kind of a crapshoot, and I know Purdue won it last year, but anything can happen in that tournament, and you get teams playing for NCAA tournament lives at that point. So even a loss in that Big Ten tournament isn't going to hurt Purdue. I think Purdue could win it, but I would not be surprised if Purdue loses its first game in that tournament. And in some ways, it might be beneficial to lose your first or second game in the Big Ten tournament to get an extended break before you have to come back and play Thursday or Friday in the NCAA tournament, because the Big Ten tournament kind of leads right into the NCAA. There's not a lot of turnaround there. As far as how far Purdue can go in the NCAA tournament, obviously, I think Purdue has the ability to win the whole thing, but it is all matchup driven. And we saw last year that Fairleigh Dickinson really just had 5 small guys in the right system to force Purdue to have to make outside shots. And on that given day, Purdue couldn't do it. So it's hard to say without seeing the path that Purdue has to go through to get to a Final Four or a national championship. But every team has to adapt to Purdue as well. And there's not a team in the country that has a 7'4", 300-pound guy that can move the way Zach Edey does. I think that's the thing that people don't understand about Zach Edey. Yes, he's extremely tall and has elite size, but he moves so well for a guy that size, hauling as much weight as he does and able to go out there and play 30 to 40 minutes a night without wearing down. He was at his best, I think, against Northwestern the game before this in overtime after he had already played 36 minutes at that point. So definitely that's something that every team is going to have to adjust to, but it's going to come down to who you play and when you play them. And a lot of teams get hot at the right time. So you just hope that doesn't happen at Purdue's expense, because I really do think this is a special team. And I kind of felt that even last year, and probably said this numerous times last year, that I thought last year was really setting up for this year, where this was the team that Purdue had that could do something.
It should be a very interesting rest of the season, and hopefully I'll have you back on sometime, maybe during the conference tournament or after to recap it. And thank you so much for the time, and hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'll do it again anytime.
Thank you.